Last week, someone wanted to argue this one with me. They said, what if they're originally from Arkansas? Oh, you guys are twisted. I like you. Here's the question. How many of you got all 5 of those right? Can I see who got all 5? Congratulations. Here's the more important question. By a second show of hands today, how many of you had heard or seen at least one of these questions before today and still missed it? Let me tell you where I got these questions. I started seeing them when I was in the single digits. And what always bothered me, I now have about 100 of these questions I've collected for fun over the years. What bothered me is I'd see the question, didn't know the answer, learn the answer, forget it, and the next time I saw the question, I didn't know it. You know, the reason I like to begin with this quiz is because when I talk to leaders, there are 2 fundamental points that are important for when you leave. And the first is this: learning is remembering what's important. And these are not important questions, but when you leave St. Louis, you're going to have a punch list of some very important things you need to share with your teams. You're going to say, I just spent the last 2 days listening and taking notes and talking in the hallways. You've got to reduce that down to the most important stuff. Do you know that graduates, magna cum laude, they've actually done research where they re-administer the final exam 60 days after graduation, and the failure rate jumps to 2/3? Here's a scary thing. Most of what you think your people know, they don't know. And most of what you and I think we don't know either. That's why we have to continually reinforce what are the important questions. Because what's important changes over time. And the second reason that I do this quiz, I want to give you a powerful little tool. It doesn't do any good to answer the right questions, or it doesn't do any good to come up with the right answers if you're answering the wrong questions. Leaders do not know the answers to the questions, they know the best questions. And I'm going to show you today how if you change the questions, you can change your business or life. At lunch today, somebody asked, what is the biggest change in leadership? Well, a variation of that. I'm often asked, what's the biggest change in leadership you've seen in 31 years? It's not in leadership. It's in followership. If you're still treating the people on your team like followers, you're in trouble. It's the same effect as if you went to a grocery store and said to the man or woman who checked you out, you must be a servant here. They would not react positively. The words that we use create the responses we get. And today, even though they may be followers in the sense of the organizational chart, the people on your team want to be treated as team members and collaborators and contributors. And my suggestion is that you start casting and treating them using those words, and you'll be amazed at what additional performance you'll get when it goes from that antiquated model of I set the lead and you simply follow me to I do things as a leader to get your best contributions. Number 2, how do we engage our customers? How do we engage our team members? That's a question that was really big a few years ago. You still see the engagement research. Here's the question I want you to take back. How do you inspire them? Do you know that engaged team members are 44% more productive than disengaged or satisfied employees, but inspired employees are 150% more productive? Years ago, I had a speaking agent say, do not use the word inspiration as a business speaker, it will get you unhired. And today, I think you're going to see a lot more emphasis, not just on motivating, but inspiring. Why? Motivation is behavioral. Inspirational is intellectual. And you've got smart people that you lead, and you want to be more than just performing for the carrot at the end of the stick. How about this? Client service. I love this one because when Vern and I started out 30 years ago, we did seminars on client and customer service. And 2 years ago, I stopped talking about client and customer service because I realized I was talking about the hammer and not the house we were trying to build. You see, client service is only a means to an end, and that is client success. You will dominate the marketplace when you can demonstrate to your clients that by choosing you, they will be more successful than if they had chosen one of your competitors. And I don't care what market space you're in. It's about creating client success. By the way, people push back. Have you ever had really good service and still left pissed off? Have you ever been in a medical establishment where they were really nice to you, but the doctor was clueless, so the service was great, but the outcome sucked? It's not. Client service is part of the bigger package, which goes to this. How do we go beyond transacting? In my book, The Fred Factor, I talk about the 7 B's of relationship building. Because there's 2 things in life they have not taught us. Number 1, they don't teach us how to raise kids. By the time we know how, too late. Second thing they don't teach us is how to build relationships. If you're going to write something down, this is a good one. Expectation without education equals frustration. How often do you ask the people on your teams to do things they haven't been taught to do? And if most of us have never been taught how to build good relationships at home, how in heaven's name would we know how to do it at work? But I had a guy, and he pushed back. He said, you know what? We're in a really fast business. We don't have long-term contact with the people that come in, so we can't build relationships. Does that mean we must only transact? I said, oh no, there's a half step, and that is how do you engage and connect? And I'll give you a definition. Connection is a moment of shared affinity. You connected with some people over drinks that you may never see or talk to again. But you found that commonality, like when I was in Florida and I was sending out my dry cleaning and the bell cap came up to get it from me and I was wearing a Harley Davidson shirt and he said, hey, do you ride? I said, yeah, I do. I said, do you ride? We talked for 3 or 4 minutes. There were probably 10 bell caps in that hotel. He was the only one I acknowledged every time I saw him and the only one that acknowledged me. If you can't build deep relationships, at least aim to do more than transact, because people love those points of affinity, those points of connection. But the big question today is not how do you become the best. I'm not blowing smoke, but you are here because you are among, if not the best at what you do. The question is, how do you become the best and keep getting better? Because better always beats best. If you want to displace number one, just out-execute them. Just be more operationally efficient. However, it won't keep you at number one. And what I'm going to talk about today, before I give you the 6 simple ideas, and I'll give you a very specific prescription at the end, I want to give you a way to sell getting better to your team. Because your team, I'll tell you what they're thinking. Why are we always pushing on the accelerator? We're doing great. Why change anything? Why get better? Well, the first reason is we now have an early warning indicator for failure. What is it? Success. My friend Joe Calloway said it. I wish I'd said it so he'd have to quote me. Joe said, success means only that you know what worked yesterday. And that's how you stay on your toes. Success is a lagging indicator. Leading indicators are the things that will work tomorrow and beyond. So I think there's 4 reasons you got to get better. And I even hate to use the word change because it's so overused. But I'm not talking about the kind of change Clay Christensen talks about that disrupts industries. I'm talking about day-to-day change like this. 3 years ago, I had a slide of the first printed car. It was ugly. 2 years ago, I had a slide of a really nice-looking printed car, but it wasn't roadworthy. This is the first fully roadworthy, fully printed automobile. And if you were savvy and you were watching the news 2 weeks ago, you saw this. This is the first printed house. It took 23 hours to print. This is the kind of world we live in. This is my printer. Well, actually, it's a picture of my printer from the internet because I don't have pictures of my office equipment with me, but this is an HP printer that I got from Amazon, and I signed up for the HP ink replacement program. But I'm kind of a worrier, so I got some crappy replacement ink just in case I needed some as a backup. And one day I ran out of ink, and I put the substitute replacement ink in my printer, and I instantly got an email from Hewlett-Packard. My printer narked on me. My printer contacted Hewlett-Packard and said, this guy's putting crappy ink in me, help! And they sent me a letter berating me for putting crappy ink in my own printer. This is the kind of world that we live in. And then you got this. I love this. When I was speaking at a graduate program at a university in Colorado, and a graduate student came up to me and she said, I did not like the way that you used warlike imagery to describe business. I said, you ever had a job? She said, no. So this isn't warlike, this is insect-like. Those are locusts. You know why they fly so fast? Because they're trying to eat each other. If you're the locust looking ahead, you're trying to eat that locust, and the one behind you is trying to eat you. You either get lunch or you become lunch. And unless you're in a rapidly expanding market space, the only way you grow your business is by eating the locust in front of you and taking customers from your competition. Third reason you got to get better, these folks. A couple years ago, well, not a couple years ago, about a year ago, I did a blog on what would be the biggest changes in business in the next 5 years. I did it with 4 of my friends. We call ourselves the 5 Friends, oddly enough. And here's what I said was my prediction for the biggest change in business in the next 5 years. Escalating customer demands. Have you ever noticed the more you do for customers, the more they expect? Do you ever notice that when you stay at Motel 6, your expectations are pretty low or non-existent? But if you get the same treatment at the Four Seasons, you complain and ask for a refund. See, that's the problem. The better you become, the more the customer expects. No value proposition can ever be static. You must be continually increasing your value proposition. But